transition of business operations in a global service delivery mode for several prestigious clients. Kiran has done Masters of Business Administration from GITA and Masters of Commerce from Andhra University. And today he will be sharing with us on delivering startup awareness programs. Now I request Mr. Kiran to take over this session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Naveen, and good afternoon to all the participants. It's indeed Naveen, just a quick check. Are you getting my audio and video right?
Yes, sir. Everything is fine.
Excellent. It's indeed a unique opportunity for me to be taking this session on entrepreneurship to such an elite participant group who are from prestigious colleges and who are in the profession of grooming the next generation. And I also believe that there are some student participants who probably are interested to take up the entrepreneur path or still at a stage where they're yet to decide whether entrepreneurship is the way forward. If so, what are the pitfalls? What's the roadmap ahead? I know it will be an interesting session today and also challenging session for me because we are on day 3 and this is session 9. There have been eminent speakers before me who have touched upon this topic of entrepreneurship. Of course, from different angles, they probably have shared different viewpoints. And it's quite possible that there will be a lot of overlaps because every session has to have some overlaps because we are touching on a common point of entrepreneurship. The challenge is more founded because it's an afternoon session and it's not easy for everyone to have full attention until and unless the topic is of interest and so is the speaker. Well, I'll try to do my best, but to set the expectation right, I'm not an academician, so I do not know exactly the definitions of different concepts, but I am here to share my views on my entrepreneurial journey over the past 3 decades, and wherein probably I started off being into business right from my early college days. And I ran some businesses, and then being in a family where my father was already into business, I thought I would gradually get into looking after his business. So while I was pursuing my academic pursuits, it was always there that I would become a businessman. But something changed during the course of time, and there is some disturbance. Thank you. I changed courses and I took a path of startups unknowingly in 2000. So today I would like to more or less share my views on what entrepreneurship is all about and why it is important. And let me Hemant, are you seeing my screen?
So your presentation is not yet visible, but your screen is visible.
Okay. Now?
Yes, sir.
The entire screen?
Yes, sir. But it is not in presentation mode, sir.
Is it
Uh,
is it okay now?
no. No, it is. Thank you.
Okay. So today I would like to, I'm supposed to deliver a session on startup awareness program. So as I told earlier, I would share my thoughts of my experience of being an entrepreneur, being a businessman, and of late for the past 5 to 6 years, we have been doing some programs at the college level as part of the Industry Academia Connect, where I've been interacting with students of several colleges talking about entrepreneurship, and also being in the space of mentoring and funding for early stage startups. I do interact with people, review their pitch desks, and evaluate whether an idea has the potential to become a successful startup. So it's just my views to this audience. So I was supposed to focus more on entrepreneurship as a career choice. This is for people mostly who are in the college, and why they should take entrepreneurship as a career option. And it's important for people to know the bright side of entrepreneurship and also on the false side of it, and what does it take to become a successful entrepreneur. And I'd also like to talk about the factors that influence one's decision, like to choose which career path they have to take. From my past experience, my personal experience, as I told you, being from a family of business, it was natural for me to think of business, but it may not be the same for different families. So let's also talk about the different influencing elements that decide on a career choice. And then we'll also talk about startup from campus, why starting up on or becoming an entrepreneur is important, or the advantages of starting up while you're at study. If so, when you have to start, and the steps you have to take in order to seed an idea while you are at startups. So obviously, a lot of speakers before me and after me would take you through specific topics about the entrepreneurial ecosystem, the different stages of startup journey, and the other aspects. So in detail, but I would like to touch upon some of the things which would help me to build a case as to my personal views on these two important elements, which I'm supposed to talk today. What is entrepreneurship? In fact, this is something that I keep hearing different versions of entrepreneurship, its meanings from different people. It's from people who are just getting into college, parents, academicians, business owners. A lot of people have different versions of entrepreneurship, what it is and what it really does to themselves, to the society, and to the country's economy, so on and so forth. But of late, there has been a lot of fanciness attached to the word startup. There is a pride factor when a lot of people say that I want to become an entrepreneur. And when we really question them, why do you want to become an entrepreneur? The explanations are not something that really gives us a feeling that people really understand the real definition of entrepreneurship. Most of the participants are from the academia, so they do know it much better than me. But my view of what an entrepreneurship is something that I wanted to share, because I feel that besides having a lot of information available by the click of a mouse of what entrepreneurship is, the perceptions of different people is paving way for a lot of misinformation too. So for a common understanding of what entrepreneurship is, I thought probably I would touch upon it. And I would also like to touch upon how it is different from the regular business. The case we are discussing here is entrepreneurship vis-a-vis startups. So a startup has some uniqueness to being a business, though it's a part of a business entity, but startup has its own unique way of addressing this business aspirations of people. So I wanted to touch upon that. So if you look at a lot of things that are going on, entrepreneur, some say it's small business, some say it's big business, it's a new venture, some people say it's innovation, it's wealth maximization, a lot of dollars, a lot of time on head. You can get in and probably wake up in the middle of the night and do things and do all the, you can do a lot of things if you take up this path. So there's a lot of confusion. So first, let me share with you what entrepreneurship is all about. So this again, I went back to the book definition, and it made a lot of sense to me to stuck to the basics. So an entrepreneur is an individual who creates a new business, bearing most of the risks and enjoying most of the rewards. So I highlighted three key elements here, which is creating new business, bearing most of the risks, and enjoying most of the rewards. So any individual who creates a new business, having fully known the risks involved in starting this new business, is called an entrepreneur. But why does he does this activity, knowing that there are risks involved? He takes up this activity because he feels the rewards, which are the end fruit of this activity, is something far more fulfilling for him than the risks. So this is the assumption with which a lot of people get into the role of an entrepreneur, and they start creating businesses. The process of setting up of a business is known as entrepreneurship. It's simple. So the total activities, there's a lot of process involved, right from the stage of thinking about an idea and the final stage of making profit. That entire process of setting up a business is called as entrepreneurship. But for the sake of one being a startup, every business is not a startup. So there is some difference between a business and a startup. So the uniqueness of a startup is innovation. So an entrepreneur, in terms of being a startup initiator, is someone who brings to the table innovation. He is a man who is a source of new ideas. It could be a product, it could be a service, it could be a business procedure, it could be a way of living, whatever it is. There is some innovation to an existing way of doing an activity or using a product or offering a service. So which is the key to entrepreneurship, in specific to being a startup. So let's quickly understand the difference between the difference between startup and business. How do we distinguish? The basic distinction I make when I go through some of the pitch desks that I get from people who pitch an idea as a startup idea is, I would like to know how this idea is different from whatever is available in the market. Is there a uniqueness to this idea? Is there an entry barrier? Because ideas are dime a dozen. You might have heard this from all the people, all the speakers so far. But how the idea is put into execution makes a lot of difference. That's a different part as to the execution. But at the initial stage of seeding of an idea, there has to be a uniqueness to the idea. It has to be different from an existing product or a service or an idea. And I also look at, is there an entry barrier? By entry barrier, I mean, if this can be quickly replicated by someone else or not. If it can be quickly replicated, there might be a unique idea which is unique at this point of time. It could be unique just because you are not aware of its existence in the other parts of the world, or it could be even another town or another city. Information could be limited on that aspect. But once the idea is out, if everyone can easily adopt, then that's not a good startup idea. It's just a business idea for me. Because there has to be an entry barrier, and it should allow the business to flourish because of its uniqueness. And the second aspect which I look into is scalability. The scalability is an important aspect for a startup because a startup is supposed to map this idea to a future and scale up in such a way that the revenue multiplies, the profits multiplies, and there is wealth creation. So the idea that is the seed of a business, if it has a scalable, a replicable, and a uniqueness to it, then I personally think that it's a startup. Otherwise, it's a business. It's a normal business. Like I said, all startups are businesses, but all businesses cannot be startups. So the uniqueness to a startup is the differentiation in terms of the unique idea, having an entry barrier, and then providing an opportunity to scale. An idea which is just dependent on the promoter's availability is not something to be called as a good startup, because if the promoter is not there, then the whole business collapses and it cannot be replicated. Today, I might have a profit of about 200% in this idea, and I might get a 100 crore profit. But if it cannot be replicated, I cannot have multiple users, I cannot have multiple markets, and until and unless it has a potential to quickly go to other markets, it is not scalable, then it's not a startup idea for me. And as I told you, when I play the role of an investor, an idea has to appeal to me. And appeal to me because as an investor, I look how much return I get on this investment. And I'm not happy with say 20%, 30% return, but I probably am looking at into 3x, 5x of the investment that I make. And in a particular period of time, it could be 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, depending on when I'm investing in the startup life cycle. So how do we make profit is a different thing. The business idea and the business owner, whom we call as a founder of a company, should be doing this business with an idea to make profits. The profit could be selling the business or multiplying the sale of the products and services, expanding markets, or exiting from the company and allowing others to enter in whenever there is a possibility of it being scaled to a greater extent. So this is primarily the distinction between a startup versus a regular business. There is another important aspect which I want to talk about, which is entrepreneur and entrepreneur. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about it. This is an important aspect which I wanted to touch upon in context of throwing some light on why to take up entrepreneurship as a career choice. Because the alternate to being an entrepreneur is to take a wage employment, which is you're choosing a job, or you're going and joining a company for a particular fixed salary for the services that you provide. But there is a sea change in the way organizations are functioning. I remember when I was in college, a lot of people never ventured into businesses because they wanted a stable job, stable income, a safe and secure job. So the primary preference for most of the people was a 9-to-5 job, which could be a bank, a public sector, where they spend their time there and they get a fixed pay. But the dynamics of the day-to-day business, the globalization, has forced every other company to change the cultural ethos of the way they function. And it is not just limited to the new age companies, but even the public sector organizations, be it banks, be it Navaratnas, are also adopting to this entrepreneurial style of functioning, because results do matter. And it's no longer viable for people to work under safety nets, because the safety nets is not ensuring them continuity. And organizations are going to perish until and unless they innovate. And innovation has become the essence of it. So any successful organization today that's starting now, or all successful organizations of the past which are doing well, have adopted a different style or approach to expand their markets by changing the way their leaders think, function, and the way their human resources are being handled. And that's how the concept of entrepreneurship has come into space. So let me quickly share the differences between an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur. So who is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur who sets up his own enterprise, which is his own idea, is called as an entrepreneur. But entrepreneur is an employee of an organization who undertakes innovation. So he's working within an organization. So anyone who could be a part of an organization, but whoever thinks differently, who focuses on innovation, is called as an entrepreneur. And the resources that are available to an entrepreneur is his or her own resources. He has to do everything to pull in the resources, whatever are required to make his idea work. Whereas,
Sir,
in an
so sorry
yeah,
to interrupt, but your presentation is too small, sir. It is not visible. Uh, if you can change into another presenter mode.
just a sec. Just give me a second. Is it better now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let me start from where I left. The resources that are available for an entrepreneur is completely his own. He has to mobilize the resources on his own. Whereas in an entrepreneur, resources are provided by the company. So, and academicians can be an entrepreneurs, because if you're doing some activity within the institute and using the resources of the university, or employees who are in an organization where the resources are funded by the company, then people are at far more liberty to achieve what they want to accomplish in a faster, better way. And the capital again, normally in the initial stages, every startup founder is either bootstrapping it or getting funds from the family and friends, and then pitching it to external investors. In fact, that's one of the toughest point in an entrepreneur journey. Whereas for an entrepreneur, the fund is provided by the organization. Sorry. And then the enterprise is normally a newly established enterprise, whereas it's an existing enterprise, which probably is focusing their energies into developing a new product using innovation. While the risk is totally borne by the entrepreneur, in the other setup, it is borne by the company. So anyone having this skills which are required and who do not want to do a 9-to-5 job, or not happy with the rewards that he's getting as an employee of an organization, or who's into wage employment, also has a path of taking up or being a part of this entrepreneurial journey by becoming an entrepreneur. In fact, the reason why I wanted to discuss this is every startup which is successful is not success just because of its initial founder or the initial set of co-founders. It is because of a team of people who continuously work or are part of this startup, but they do everything that the founder and the co-founder does, except for that they do not have the money to invest or they do not have the risk appetite. And these people are very, very essential for the success of a lot of companies. And to name, I probably would share some of the companies which have taken this path of entrepreneurship and have seen successful. But just for the sake of better understanding of the differences of entrepreneur and entrepreneur, and also the commonalities between both of them, is innovation and leadership, which is the core, the essence of this primary activity or the skill or the mindset of anyone who would like to be part of this entrepreneurial journey, which is there need to be a quest for finding solutions for the problems. There need to be an innovation mindset. And just an innovation mindset is not sufficient. What is also required is the ability to convince that idea and rub that idea into a larger team so that the team members are equally passionate about making this idea into a reality. And that's the reason the successful entrepreneurs are always great leaders. So they have this ability to lead from the front and take forward their ideas and do everything to convert these ideas into a reality. Now, the activities some of the companies have taken within an organization that probably a lot of people know or don't know, but I would like to share, is we are all aware that today Google is one of the preferred companies to work with for a lot of youngsters. There are many reasons why people would like to be part of Google. Of course, the primary reason which initially attracts for people to vie for a job in Google is the salary, is the excellent offices, and they also talk about the work culture. They also talk about the weekend parties, off-site meetings, rewards. But there is something distinct and unique to this organization which helped Google to continuously be on the path of innovation. As a part of the work culture, Google says that every employee gets to do anything that he wants that would help Google to go to the next level within the 20% of the time he's supposed to work in the organization. So the organization culture is such a way that they are giving you 20% of the time for which they are paying you to think about how one can contribute to the company's growth and innovate. And I'm sure most of you are aware that Gmail is a brainchild of one such 20% free time activity. And so is Google News, and so is Google AdWords. So this is an important way. There has been a cultural shift in the way the companies have adopted this entrepreneurial style of working in order to continuously stay ahead of their competitors and provide value to their shareholders, to be a contributors to the economy at large, and at the end of the day bring happiness to all the stakeholders, be it their employees, their employee families, their vendors, whatnot. So this approach is very, very important for all of us to understand. And how this is done. Are these people different from the regular middle of the people who try to think straight, who try to function based on a rule book? I come from a ITES industry, and one of my first startup activity was being a finance and accounting outsourcing company. And when we started this activity, I never knew that it was called as a startup, or there is something called as a business process outsourcing, and there is something called as a knowledge process outsourcing. This was all news to me. All I knew was I had great friends who were chartered accountants, who were doing great services to a lot of companies in India. I looked at the way they were doing this business, and I thought, okay, can we take the services to the international market and use their expertise in solving the problems of overseas, because there is a wage arbitrage. Today, if this chartered accountant firm is getting, say, about 5,000 rupees for a certain piece of work, is there an opportunity there for us to make $1,000? And the wage arbitrage appealed to me. And I happened to explore, go to the US. And all I had was a laptop and a website that I built just before the day I flew. And this is way back in 2001. I made a brochure with the experience my team members went, and started talking to people. And little did I realize that there are a set of companies which are supposed to be called as a business process outsourcing companies, and they offer these services in different domains. And the service that I'm talking about is something related to finance and accounts. And I also learned that our service was unique, because we are not trying to do a data entry or a job that is commonly done by everyone, but we are doing something because we possess some knowledge. So then people told me, the activity that you are doing is KPO. Okay, then we started off, and then it's a long story how we expanded, and it took different turns and lanes and by lanes for us to come to a stage where all the stakeholders involved in that activity are happy. But this is where I think what comes to importance is the entrepreneurial mindset. So what is this typical mindset? I think today morning or yesterday, there probably were some sessions that were related to the qualities to look for in a student who can become an entrepreneur or who can take up business. So there may be several overlaps on that. But to me personally, when I see a person with a bright idea to come to me and talk to me, or when I interact with a lot of other startup founders, one common thing that I notice is, or the way I was when I initially got into the space was, I was looking at everything as an opportunity. So seeing and creating opportunities. If there is something available there, I was thinking of how to make it a better thing, and then is there an opportunity to make money? Of course, that was the driver, or opportunity to make our customers happy. So this is where the eye for opportunity is very, very important aspect of one to become a good entrepreneur. It's not just important that you have an eye for this opportunity. You should also have the ability to convert these ideas into action, because ideas are dime a dozen. So there are a lot of people, a lot of good ideas die on the table just because it lacks the perseverance to take this idea into concrete action items and be at it throughout. And the third important aspect is leadership. One has to be a leader, and the founders of the company has to have the ability to lead from front and inspire the team members, very importantly, and also to have that mentality or the leadership qualities to take this idea from a seeding stages to an action-oriented plan. And one distinct quality leaders have is they look at problems as challenges, and the challenges always motivate them to look into solutions. And remember, any startup journey is filled with a lot of challenges. Every corner there is a challenge. There is a scarcity of a lot of resources. No one is willing to look at your idea. No one is willing to give you the time to even listen to your idea. People will write you off, be it in the family, your friends, your colleagues. So it calls for a distinct leadership quality to have self-belief and the ability to convert that self-belief and rub it on to the people around you to be a successful entrepreneur. And as I mentioned earlier, using resources smartly is the key. If there are no limitations whatsoever, then the real value from a particular resource is not being maximized. And startups are all about value maximization, where that's the cornerstone for any new innovation. If there are no limitations, if you say that, okay, I'm going to fund you as much as you want, and I'm giving you as much of time, and I can give you as many as intelligent people to develop a unique idea, then people will not probably make best use of what is available. They might be lethargic in their approach. When there is fire and you have to deliver, when there are deadlines, when there is pressure, then leaders really expand their horizons, be it in thinking, be it in the hours they put in, be it in bringing out unique solutions which are smart, cheaper, better. So the constraint is very important, and these resources, the ability to use these resources smartly and get value is a key element for any entrepreneur. And managing risks. As we discussed earlier, risks are the cornerstone for any entrepreneurial process. So people get into with their eyes open, but with a set of assumptions. They go with an assumption that these are the risks that I'm aware of at this point of time, and then I am prepared to take this risk because I have a risk mitigation plan. But the reality is something different. What you thought as risk can never become a risk, and what you maybe hit maybe with something would have come out of the blue, and you need to be on your feet to manage and mitigate that risk. So the risks could be on every front. It could be like unable to deliver to your first client, unable to make payments to your vendor, unable to make payments to your employees, so on and so forth. Or there could be compliance risks. A lot of entrepreneurs, or a lot of people who are in the startup phase, they are not aware of the regulatory framework that is available in the as per the rule of the land. It is out of ignorance. They probably try to do something not with an intention to circumvent the rules, but they could be hit with a stipulation or a regulation, and which can totally upset their entire idea. So people, the startup founders, have to be informative. They need to definitely get all the right inputs from the right resources so that they have a reasonable understanding of what the risks are and how to come up with a risk mitigation plan. And the last and the most important of all of the above, and probably equally important, is collaborating to create a shared value. This is an entrepreneurial mindset. An entrepreneur always would like to share the benefits of his idea with a larger group. He is not stingy. He doesn't want to keep entire thing to himself. If he has that mentality, then any good idea will fall flat, because take it from me, my personal experience, no individual can scale or build an organization that can be scaled to a greater heights. And if a person is not a team member who does not have the ability with where ability to collaborate with team members and have a common shared value, it is going to falter. And there is this is one of the questions that I ask founders of a company in choosing their team members. Most of the college startups, when we do a pitch evaluation, or then they come up and say that this is the core founding team. Okay, so we have 3 people, X, Y, Z. How do you know each other? Okay, we are from the same college. We think on the same lines. This is how they come to us. In fact, there's a common saying in a board room: if all the 5 people think alike, then there is no need of all 5. There is just one person involved. So especially when we are talking about a startup and innovation, then there has to be a conflicting ideas. There has to be a debate. There have to be disagreements, and all should be working with a common purpose of finding a middle ground, or finding a value or a solution that is much beyond their personal egos. So collaborating with the shared values and is an important aspect. And I remember listening to an interview of the great mentor, Narayan Murthy Garu of Infosys. And when asked that, how is Infosys continuously on a growth path, and how is Infosys getting so much success? He said that my job is to find people who are far more intelligent than me, and then give them a motivation to work for. So, and this is something that a lot of people are not comfortable with when hiring a person. A lot of people are not competent enough to accept a person who is far more competent than you, who is far more intelligent than you, who is far more capable than you. The founder or the CEO or the head of the organization need not be the most intelligent person in the organization, but he needs to be a leader who understands and appreciates the value of each one and uses their value for a common purpose. So collaboration is a key essence for any founder. So this is the mindset that an entrepreneur need to have. Reason I am sharing this with the select group is this is very important as to how we counsel a lot of students or anyone to take up the path of entrepreneurship, because there's a lot of fancy attached to the word of entrepreneurship, and it is what is available or visible on the top of it is completely different from what is actually required for one to be a successful entrepreneurship. So before giving an advice to someone, it's very important for all of us to assess whether he is right suited for this entrepreneur journey. I would also like to touch upon the different stages of entrepreneurship, because this has some connections and relevance to what I would like to talk about, like startup from the college, why, when, and how. As you all know, we can broadly map the different stages of entrepreneurship as an idea stage, a development stage, a launch stage, and an acceleration stage. Ideation stage is one of the most interesting, challenging stage, because you don't just get up one night and say that this is an idea that will do wonders. Idea needs a lot of collaboration. Ideation requires boundaryless thinking. I mean, if someone has set a boundaries, then ideation will not work. I'm sure there were sessions where they talked about different ways of ideation, which is a problem solving or a brainstorming session, or the 5 whys theory, ask why, and then the method, the 635 approach, so on and so forth. So there could be different ways for one to approach this ideation stage, but this is a very critical stage where there is a lot of collaboration involved. And at this stage, there is not only filtering of a lot of ideas, but this is a stage where there is a huge requirement of different and diversified viewpoints, and there is filtration of ideas, there is filtration of people who could be part of this idea, and it could lead to a core set of ideas that could work, and it could also probably lead to a set of people who believe in this idea and are willing to put in their time and heart into converting this idea into a solution that is going to work. And the second phase is also equally important, because it is conversion of these ideas into tangible action items, or taking it to a stage which we call it as a pilot stage, or making a MVP, a product, a pilot product, or a viable product, testing it out, taking it to the market, seeking the feedback from the customers, from the users, from the payers, and from the distributors, and all these people, and then tweaking the original idea, and then coming up to a idea that can really work. I'd like to share about my personal experience as to how my initial idea has been filtered and narrowed down into something that could really expand, or give us a scalability. As I told you initially, what we started off as finance and accounting offshoring unit, I went and approached the chartered accountants or the CPAs in the US, because I thought instead of approaching the end clients, let me approach the aggregators, because a CPA firm will be having multiple clients. So I thought probably let me talk to them. And that's how the first approach was. And in my over enthusiasm, I committed to say that I would do anything and everything related to finance and accounts. Then after a few iterations and hearing from experienced people, anything and everything doesn't really appeal to people. You need to have with a specialized set of services. And then probably approaching the CPAs in the US was not the right thing, because they are very conservative. Again, people say that people in the finance and accounting are not very risk-taking. So it could be a reason. And they also have probably are visionaries, because they could see that if we, though we get business from them, there is a possibility that they lose the entire set of business. Then we went and approached aggregators who were doing something similar in the US, and we said we will do finance and accounting, and we narrowed it down to AP, AR processing. And we started off, we were doing a lot of accounting for a fast food chain of restaurants, a franchisor who had about 1,000 odd McDonald's units across the unit. So people sitting in Visakhapatnam, we had an office in that island where punching numbers for all these fast food restaurants and doing accountants. And later on, as we wanted to scale, and we looked at the return on the transactions that we are doing, and then after a lot of discoveries, we landed up being a reimbursement administration company. From a finance and accounting company, we became a reimburse administration and company. And we said, wherever there is a reimbursement, we can offer you a service. And it could be a travel reimbursement, it could be a health claim reimbursement, it could be a parking reimbursement, whatever it is. And when we narrowed down to a particular focused service offerings, then we got connected with a large pool of people who said that, okay, you guys are doing something different. And when we narrowed down our focus, we had the intervention of technology. We found how we could probably offer solutions that are cut off from the market. And we became something like an Intel to a computer. We were not visible outside in terms of the service that we are offering, but we were like the Intel processor that was sitting on every hardware, like be it Dell or Hewlett Packard or anything. So our front-end customers were, we were working for Fidelity, we were working for Bank of America. They were fronting us, but we were the people behind them who were doing all those activities. So this all happened post the development stage and the launch stage, and more importantly into acceleration stages. So depending on the set of people whom you interact, the set of customers and the partnerships that you make, one's journey moves from the ideation stage to an acceleration stage. And believe me, it's not a slow cycle. It could take anywhere between 5 to 10 years also. For me personally, in 2001, when I started off with this idea, it took me till 2005 to be absorbed by a US entity. And the US entity had went into a lot of amalgamations and mergers, and to be at a stage today, they are at an acceleration stage, and probably they're one of the few niche players who are offering these services. So that's how businesses normally function. So it's important for us to understand the different entrepreneur stages. And a quick view about the entrepreneur ecosystem and the different elements or the players involved in it. This is very, very important to touch upon, because when I started off my entrepreneur activity, the culture and the social norms were totally different to what it is today. Even today, probably there are a lot of people or parents who probably not encourage a talented person who has the entrepreneurial mindset and all the skill set that is required to become a good entrepreneur to take up that path, because it's not there in their family, it's not there in their family members, or probably successful people are not in that vicinity, and they have heard about some other stories where people have wasted about 4 or 5 years of time of their most young and productive phase investing in as an entrepreneur. And similarly, the government programs. Government is a very key element in the entrepreneur ecosystem. And I still remember during my college days when P.V. Narasimha Rao was there and Manmohan Singh was the finance minister, where the economy has opened up, the license regime has changed. That fueled a lot of people to take into the path of exports, do some get into IT and all that stuff. And of late, in the past 5 years or 7 years, we have seen a sea change in the government's attitude of promoting entrepreneurship in a massive scale by calling it Make in India programs. They have come up with a lot of initiations. The government policy has changed. They come up with an MSME policy. They have come up with a startup policy, and they have come up with an Atal incubation center. So this is all driving people to take up the entrepreneurial path. Similarly, physical infrastructure plays a very important role, because as we discussed about the earlier phases in startups, be it the ideation phase or the growth phase, there is a resource crunch. People do not have money to have a proper place to sit. And again, I would like to go back to my 2001 stage, where we had an office of probably 15 by 20 SFT with 2 window air conditioners that were making more noise than cooling. And we had about 12 to 15 people working in that space. We were crunched for money, we were crunched for space, but we had to do that because we had our first client visiting us and he wanted to look at the facility. Today, the scenario is different. We have a lot of incubation space available, which is subsidized, which is probably at zero cost available. And university is also coming up with an incubation center. The government is also coming up with an incubation center, which is highly subsidized. So it's easy for people to get their ideas into realities and provide a good working space for their team members where the ideas flourish and the long hours that are needed for an ideation to become a reality is properly comforted with. And similarly, entrepreneurship education. I think the reason why we are having this seminar only speaks about how this ecosystem has evolved and where not only the academicians, the students, the policymakers, everyone understands the importance of this entrepreneur education, and it is probably being encouraged to give this advice to people. And today's topic is more relevant because what we're trying to assess is why not entrepreneurship as a career choice instead of a normal job offering. And then the market openness. Market openness is really a blessing, and it's a global village, as people rightly call it. And today, especially in the service market, we don't know whom we are talking to. Where is that person sitting? Post-COVID, it has become even much expanded. Not only people are working at different locations, a product produced at one place is being serviced or delivered by someone else, and it is being serviced or maintained by someone. So there's a lot of openness that has come into market, and people are willing to buy goods and services without having to see it. In fact, the success of Amazon's and Flipkart's only prove as a point that there has been openness from the customer point of view also. And research and development transfer is also an important element of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, primarily because innovation is the essence for any entrepreneur to flourish. So, and innovation can happen only if there is research and development activity. So if you look at the government initiatives, government has come up with a lot of accommodations for companies to focus on research activities, and colleges, the way universities are being graded is also, there is a lot of emphasis on the research activity that they are doing. There are collaborations between the industry and the academicians. There are collaborations between the universities across the globe. So there's a lot of research happening and development happening, and there's a lot of knowledge transfer, technology transfer happening at this place. And last but not the least, the entrepreneur finance. Finance is the key, that really is a seed money. So earlier, not many people were willing to invest in an idea, which probably has more chances of fail. A lot of people invest not in an idea, but invest in people. Personally, for me, it's not just the idea, but it is the person who is getting that idea and his passion is what I personally bet on. But yeah, there are a lot of options available. There is government which is pumping in money as seed. There are banks that are giving seed funding. There are family and friends who are willing to invest small chunks of money. And there are angel investors. There are venture capitalists who are willing to contribute, and a lot of players that are available. So today we are at a stage where we can comfortably say that there is good work done by all the players in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. But is that sufficient? Of course not, because there's nothing like sufficient. But is it available for the right person? Yes, it is available. There is access for all of this, and we can comfortably assume that the entrepreneurial ecosystem as of now is very, very vibrant. And now, touching upon the important aspect of career choice and why entrepreneurship is a career choice. But before getting there, let's also try to understand the factors that influence a decision of a student to take up a startup career. And by startup career, I also mean that working in a startup vis-a-vis working in a corporation too, because not many people are still tuned to the idea of joining a startup instead of going with a safe bet of working with a branded company. So what are the factors? Parents desiring parental pressure. This is a ground reality, because these days, right from the day the kid joins kindergarten, parents are deciding what he wants to become. And there's a lot of pressure from the parents that, yeah, you have to become a doctor, you have to become an engineer, you have to do that, but not many people would suggest, not many parents would suggest that, okay, take the entrepreneur path. There is peer persuasion and past performance. This is for people who probably are working somewhere and they're performing well, and they burn their midnight oil in helping their companies grow. And then suddenly they feel that, okay, why am I doing it for someone else? Why can't I do? So they branch out, they start their own ventures, and then they decide that, okay, let me hang my boots in the company and then let me start up my entrepreneurial journey. And similarly, the potential available, the market potential is a key element. Placement opportunity. This is unfortunately one of the deciding factors, because a lot of people, campus placements, a company comes and conducts an interview, you get a job, that's an end to it. You depending on what sort of companies come to your institutions, there are 13 companies that are coming, of which there is no startups. You don't get to land there, because the ability to find a job on our own is not that much given the current economic condition. But of late, I mean, touch wood, what we have been hearing for the past 6 months during COVID is there is a huge demand for talented resources, and people are switching jobs, taking hikes with about 20 to 30%. So there's a lot of opportunities available for the right skill. And it all depends upon the personality driven. A lot of people, how much ever money the other person is willing to pay, they do not want to get into a job, and because they want to be their own boss. A honest confession, when my company's business was taken over by Florida-based company. I joined their corporate body as a director of regional operations. I was overseeing their operations in India. We had 3 centers, one in Vizag, one in Kolkata, and one in Siliguri. And in one of the conversations with the board members or the investor group, the question I had was, do I have the freedom to focus? I need complete freedom to run the business the way I want. They assured me at that point of time. But as and when there are new set of investors coming in, and as being an employee of an organization, the commitments, the deliverables change, and all the investors look for is the ROI that they will be making. And you really do not have the freedom to take the organization the way you want to run it until and unless you have. It could be because of lack of competencies. It could be for any other reason, but yeah. So the personality really matters. And then there is this unique thing called as opportunity loss. Yeah. Assume that there is a topper in the college who got a job of about, say, 20 lakhs in a company, a branded company, and he has a good startup idea. So it's a difficult choice for him to make. Am I at loss by not taking that opportunity? I don't know whether this idea succeeds or not. Or it could be the family situations or things that are going in. And another confession to make is in startups, we had difficulty in finding the right people. No matter where, even though we match the the salary. We said we are going to pay you more than an X company if you got this offer. People say that, no, sir, because it might not get me a good bride or a good groom, because parents or the groom's parents are only interested to uh, find a match from a certain company. So there are a lot of influencing factors. So our role is just an advisory role with a caveat of whatever pitfalls and the success aspects of being an entrepreneur. And now, in a nutshell, if I have to summarize, who can be an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur is a person who is really passionate about. And what is he passionate about? He should be passionate not about making lots of money or becoming an entrepreneur. He should be passionate about solving a problem. The root to any successful entrepreneurship is you pick up a problem and then you find a solution and you do everything to solve that problem. How do you pick up that problem? Does the problem has a potential to be a money earner, to be a wealth maximizer? Does it have an ability to scale it? Is something different. But the money or to become an entrepreneur should not be the passion. Of course, I do believe that desire is very important for anyone. It's the aspirations which decides the altitude of success of any person, that I strongly believe in. And I honestly believe in the preachings of Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, where he says that a lot of people, though they have, in fact, he mentions that there are 3 key elements for anyone to be highly successful. One is knowledge, which is how to do it, why to do it, when to do it, and the skill, the way we convert this knowledge into action items. And the third element is desire, is the desire to do these things. A lot of people, in spite of having a specialized knowledge pool, or by that I mean they might be doctors, but they may be doing business, they may be civil engineers, but they may be doing IT. It's because the desire is something that is missing. So if a person has desire or an aspiration to become something, they automatically will acquire the needed knowledge and skill. So if someone really has the desire to be a successful entrepreneur, probably he may start with an idea to become an entrepreneur, but he may not be looking at the right problem, but he has to look at identifying a problem and find a solution to that problem which is scalable. So the passion is something that one has to really have. And skills are very important, and we talked about what those skills are. It could be the leadership skills, communication is an important aspect, the selling skill is very important. And then perseverance is something that's very, very important, because throughout the entrepreneur journey, till you become successful, you will be hearing from everyone that, are you at risk? Should you give up? It could be from family, it could be friends, it could be peers, it could be your colleagues. So in spite of all odds, Ben, you should have the ability to continuously chase the idea that you are so confident about. But there's a flip side to it. And these days, when we talk to people who are continuously investing their time and money on an idea which they believe would do wonders, normally what happens is an idea is like a baby. Once you tag emotions to an idea, everything bad appears good to you. So it will be extremely difficult for you to let go. So my colleague always says that he inculcates this thought of fail fast. So you need to ensure that idea, you need to test it out, and you should not have the luxury of experimenting with idea beyond a certain amount of time. And if it fails beyond a certain point, you have to definitely come out of it and think of alternate idea or alternate career path. So everything has its flip side too, but just to check on the important attributes, we're trying to list it down. Selling skills is another critical element of a skill that an entrepreneur need to possess. It could be selling right from day one. An idea you believe in, You need to have the ability to convince or to portray the good things, or paint a picture of how it can solve the world's problem. And then you need to get your team members' interest, you need to get your initial set of investors, you need to get your family and friends, get the first clients, get the vendor to supply to you at free of cost. So it is selling, selling, selling all the way. So it's an important skill. Risk-taking attitude, undoubtedly, because it's not just for the risk that you assume, because assumptions go way away with a lot of entrepreneurial activities. So you'll be hit with new set of assumptions, and then you need to have the ability to manage and mitigate that. So when suggesting entrepreneur as a career path, to sum up all the observations made so far, as an academician, one needs to really assess the potential of the candidates, his ability to stand through this tough journey of entrepreneurship. But the skills that are needed for an entrepreneur is something that can be inculcated at the college levels, at the institute level, so that they can take this path of entrepreneurship, or entrepreneurship if they go for a wage employment. So that's my take on the role of the academicians and us in suggesting career path on entrepreneurship. And then college startups, when to start. This is another key decision. Do we start during college? Do you start after college? Do you start after a few years of work? Or you start an enterprise while working? So these probably are the different combinations that are available for one. Everything has its own merits and demerits. But if I really look back at why it is better for someone to test out their startup journey activity in college, has lots of advantages. If there are people whom we identify having that entrepreneur mindset and have the potential to acquire those skills, then probably we should be encouraging them to take up the entrepreneur path during college itself, because they can probably get a lot of mileage while starting this activity during college. Why we will discuss in the next slide. But there are different startups that can happen in the campus. One could be student startups. It's an idea that is seeded by the student himself, and where the college plays the role of an incubator, or supports the students' activities. And then there could be university startups. University, the faculty themselves, they can reach out to the community at large or the organizations, and then they can seed an idea, or they can probably come up with a solution that can solve a problem of an organization or a community or a city or a country, and then engage students to be part of that activity. There can also be community startups. This is something called as a social entrepreneurship, where someone is working for a problem that is going to solve or be of greater good to community at large. So there are different set of startups that can be thought of during college, because the college has a lot of resources at their disposal, which we would discuss. Why in college? Normally, college, everyone in the college space are young. They do not have the pressure of earning, or they have probably less responsibilities on their shoulders. So naturally, they've got few things to lose. But if that few things is losing grades or failing in academics, then it's not advisable. But for people who can balance their academics and then use their spare time to seed their ideas, then definitely college is the best time. The reason being, there are a lot of resources that are available in the college, and they can leverage them being a student. It could be infrastructure, it could be software which is subsidized because you're a student. It's ready availability of expertise. You have people at college who are masters, who know academicians, who know things in engineering, who know things in science, who know things in law, commerce, management. You can bank on their experiences in all the stages of startup. And you have a better access to markets while starting in college, because you can use the connections and the references the college might provide you. And any college would be happy to share that references to the students who are willing to take up this entrepreneur activity. And whatever is the outcome of it, whether you succeed or fail, there is always experiences that you add up. And these days, companies during hiring, a person who has been part of any startup activities in the college is definitely being given the due credit. They are definitely considered to be way different from the normal candidate. Let me say that if there is someone who has good scores academically, but there is someone who has a mediocre score but has really proved his potential, though he failed as an entrepreneur, or his idea didn't take off, but if there is an activity that he has something to be showcased, he would definitely be rewarded for the experiences when he approaches a wage market. So as we discussed earlier about the different stages, the ideation, development, launch, and acceleration. Ideation is an important stage, and while you are in college, when you have fresh minds with a lot of energy around, and there is also a mix of learned professors, academicians who have expert subject knowledge, and with an access to infrastructure and with an access to a lot of references, that there can't be a better time than starting up at a college level, provided you have the potential and you have the ability to scale, and you're not risking your academics for the sake of a startup, because startup is very demanding. And people only think that, or they say that, okay, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, they're all school dropouts and they've become successful entrepreneurs. Dropping out of the school doesn't guarantee you success. They dropped out because they had confidence on their ideas and they took that risk. But again, not everyone would probably have the same abilities or the circumstances. Probably Steve Jobs today or Bill Gates today may not be successful in the current context if they drop out from the college. And there are many, many people who dropped out from the college and took the entrepreneur path and are now wandering around because they cannot showcase their entrepreneur failure on the paper and get a job. Unfortunately, this is definitely an unfortunate thing, and the corporates, whoever are hiring people, should definitely consider this experience and not think it as a negative thing. How in college? The simple steps of ideation: come up with an idea, figure out your value proposition, ask around, go around, talk to your friends, talk to your professors, talk to your other faculties, get their input, talk to your potential customers, see if there is a merit to this idea. And then when you get good feedback, make a MVP, minimum viable product, because with the subsidized resources and the availability of resources at the college, you are definitely in a good position to make a viable product, MVP, which is far better than someone who is outside the college doing. It could be cheaper, better, and a faster solution. But make something people want. It's not just to fulfill your aspirations, but it has to be something that finds a larger acceptance, because as we assumed in the initial stages, that a startup idea has to be something that can be monetized. How can it be monetized? It can be only monetized if it can be scaled. So scale is something. So the root of it is something that is related to a problem with large set of people are facing. So make something that people want, and ship and iterate these ideas and talk to people it goes through a lot of versions. The initial idea may be something else, and what you finally land at the product or the development stage may be totally different, because it is given that the ideas and the vision and the values does not change. Probably the vision statements, the companies do revisit every time. The large corporations do revisit of the vision. So an idea that we come up with a college for a startup calls for multiple iterations. And you also ensure that you come up with a business plan. This is something that I personally have noticed from a lot of entrepreneurs. They probably have excellent idea. Their idea has a good market potential, but when it comes to preparing a business plan, when it comes to preparing down a financial metrics and doing projections, they falter. It's good that the organization comes up with some programs where the students are taught about these small things that would help them come up with an idea in a better way, because they understand the different pieces that are involved for taking the idea from an ideation stage to an acceleration stage. So the 7 phases of entrepreneurial process, there could be multiple, some might say 10 or 11, but for convenience, we have broken down into this. There's an investigation research phase, there is a planning phase, there is a startup phase, and then there comes an operating monitoring phase, problem challenge resolution phase, renewal expansion phase, and selling, transferring, retirement phase. So what we talked about, ideation, development, growth, and acceleration, is further broken down into smaller, tiny steps. The one, which is investigation research phase, second planning phase, third startup phase, this can be better done at a college level because of the reasons that we discussed earlier. So, and definitely it takes a lot of time. So anyone who is getting into its graduation, which is a 4-year course, probably in the first year, if he's able to get the nuances of all this startup or the entrepreneur process, he gets to understand, and then he invests few hours a day for the next 3 years or 4 years of stay in the college, then probably there is a good chance that once while he's graduating out of the college, he can come to the phase 3 or phase 4. And that would probably the best use of the college entrepreneur ecosystem. But where is the gap? This is the important aspect. There's a lot of euphoria about entrepreneurship across the country, more important across the state. Everyone talks about that Andhra Pradesh. People are very enterprising. A lot of IT companies, the founders are from Andhra, blah, 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 but all these things. But personally, after the division of the state of Andhra Pradesh from Telangana, I was part of the IT fraternity in Vizag, and one of the key things what we thought as a community giving exercise is to groom and nurture talent. And we visited a few academic institutions. I personally probably have been to about 10 or 15 institutions, but not every institution is geared up to fuel the aspirations of a budding entrepreneur. So what's the gap? Primary, the gap that I observed is there's lack of cross-campus collaboration. Though there is expertise available in the campus, but the collaborating approach between the departments, between the functions, is something that is lacking. So this is something that has to be planned and executed. And the hands-on experiential programs is something that is missing in the curriculum. And you as academicians need to take a look at it and then revisit this. In fact, I was very enlightened to hear from Vice Chancellor in the inaugural session, where he talked about instead of doing the regular project report sort of a thing, students need to go out, talk to the industry and get internships. That's the way forward. That's exactly how we need to push the students to get into the mud, solve the problems of the industry, and get more hands-on approach. The other simple thing is workspace. The physical infrastructure is not adequate enough for the students to create that conducive atmosphere where they can think and collaborate. I was talking to a student entrepreneur who just passed out from G.I.T.A college, and we have been associated with him for some idea that we wanted to develop. And he's part of the incubation arm of G.I.T.A, and he says that when he's talking and selling people to come and be part of his team, they're excited to be part of the incubation center for the furniture, for the way the offices are there, for the coffee vending machines, small things. These things make a huge difference for people to really think freely and contribute to developing an idea. Mentorship programs is a key element. Mentors are required, and personally, I wouldn't have been successful, at least in a small way, but for the inputs of different people who did guide me from the industry and from the family. But not everyone is so blessed. So as an organization, as an academic institution, this is an important connect that the university need to establish by creating a pool of mentors. And here I would like to share about the approach taken by these three universities: University of Houston, the UCLA, and the Cornell University in the early stages, early 2000s, when they realized that entrepreneurship is something very important, and they, as a universities or academic institutions, need to drive. And they've done some activities in the university that helped them reach that position in subsequent years, where University of Houston became number 3 in undergraduate entrepreneurship, and UCLA became number 8 in entrepreneur college, and Cornell University 16th graduate in entrepreneurship. So I just thought it may be relevant because most of the participants are academicians as to the steps probably that are relevant even at the current context in India, because there's a lot more to do on that space. What they call is unusual generosity is they provided student startups access to physical space. These colleges, what they did is they came up with incubation centers. They earmarked a special space in their college. It could be a labs, which is more suited. They replicated the corporate office setup and provided this physical office space to the student entrepreneurs. And they offer students a means to accelerate their ideas on campus. That's the primary thing. They drove people to get there and then develop these ideas into realities. And then they integrated entrepreneur education into the curriculum. This is an important aspect because as we discussed earlier about the key attributes of highly successful people is there is a knowledge element, there is a skill element, and there is a desire element. If you look at it, the activities that the university did was to fuel all these three aspirations. They provided knowledge by imparting entrepreneurship into their curriculum. They provided office spaces so that the aspirations are high. They nurtured skills. They provided a lot of skill upgradation programs, gave them the knowledge piece for them to really fuel their aspirations. And the other thing they did was aggressive cross-pollination. By cross-pollination, what they did is they offer students multiple projects-based opportunities that allow for collaboration with students from other colleges. If it's a university, then probably there are different departments. And if there is a startup community within the college comprising of people from different domains, within the university or across colleges, if you are able to conduct some meets or student competitions or hackathons sort of things where there is a lot of exchange of ideas and collaborations, that would really help us to be an important element of this entrepreneur ecosystem. And they set up a centralized entrepreneurship program office to serve as a hub for the entire universities, because it so happens that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand does. And when the organizations are large enough, especially deemed universities or universities with the scale of Andhra University or big university where multi-departments, the communication flow is not as efficient as it is supposed to be. So having a centralized program director or an office which knows what's happening where, and it's all, at the end of the day, it is connecting the dots. So if anyone is there managing and knowing what are the things happening in each of these departments, and there could be a smooth flow of not only control and also direction about how the ideas can function. So probably two people may be looking for exactly complementary ideas. So if there is an opportunity to connect them, if there's an opportunity to interact, then probably the outcome could be faster or better. So having a centralized entrepreneurship program has really helped for them to foster entrepreneurship. And then they also supported diverse group of university-wide activities to encourage the spirit of entrepreneurship across campus. So this is what we referred as hackathons, techathons, and there are some entrepreneur pitch competitions conducted by this university, inviting people from different universities. And like the COVID stage, probably with the remote way we conduct meetings, this is an enormous opportunity for us to remove the boundaries of limiting ourselves to a specific geographical region and pitch in and get people from across the globe to be part of these interactions. And this would definitely fuel the thoughts and ignite more ideas and thus more solutions to these ideas. And the third important takeaway, what they offered is get off my lawn, which is like pushing the people from the campus to go into the market and expose and explore. So they provided the students the opportunity to solve the real world industry problems that are important to the local system. This is an important thing that the university can try, wherein probably they can, with their presence and with their ability to interact with the local industry or the state level industry, they should probably be talking to the corporates and getting to know what problems they face. A repository of problems is something that would really be a good starting point for the student entrepreneurs to start generating their ideation sessions. And another important aspect is bringing industry experts into the university to impart their entrepreneurship experience and network connections. This probably the connect we can establish with that of the entrepreneurship activities, because once you talk to an organization and ask for the problems that they are facing within the organization so that you can be a part of the solutions, then if the organization also finds merit in what we are proposing to them, they probably can think of supporting this problem solving or the ideation session by sending some of their employees who can become entrepreneurs, or probably they can send them to the university to be a part of an entrepreneurship executive development program. They in turn can act as a mentors. They can probably talk to the students and share the problems that they are facing, or probably the alumni of the universities who have taken this path of entrepreneurship, they can come and they share their journey, and it can not only give insights into what they have done, though they may be relevant or may not be relevant given the current context, but it can definitely provide the network connections. We all bank on networking, and in fact, a lot of business happens at a higher level because of the network connections, and an educational institution definitely has a great role in establishing that by having a good alumni on its belly. And provide students more hands-on learning experiences that allow them to work directly with relevant industry partners. So partnership with industry, doing a lot of industry academia activities are something that would really help the students and the universities to walk hand and shoulder with the organization's goals and visions, and thereby be a contributor towards the success of the organization and thereby the growth of the nation at large. So to summarize how colleges can assist, they can inspire the students by creating awareness about the entrepreneurship opportunities, but it's always better to also tell them about the flip side to entrepreneurship. They can motivate and create an atmosphere for students to acquire entrepreneurial mindset. Acquiring this entrepreneurial mindset definitely helps, be it even if they take a wage employment and not take the entrepreneur path or starting their own business. That entrepreneurial mindset definitely helps them to excel in whatever organizations they work with. And if you look at the current CEOs of great companies have joined as employees, and they've become CEOs of the company. And what they do is exactly what any entrepreneur do, but they are doing it at a larger scale, and they're making meaningful contributions. So it is very imperative for all of us to enlighten, inspire, and educate and motivate people and the young minds to take up this and acquire this entrepreneur mindset. Invites professionals to teach, as we discussed earlier, and then educate and skill. This is definitely an important primary function of any academic education institute, but let's not stop just at educating, but also focus on skills. And we see the focus of the governments at large also on the skill gap, because there is a lot of unemployment, because a lot of graduates, though they have certificates, they do not have the right skills, that or in other way they are not employable, and they're not employable because they do not have the skill. So, and we need to provide them the hands-on experience, and this can only be fastened up if the university by itself gets into a role of an entrepreneur culture, wherein it's not just teaching or doing research, but probably the university should also start looking at providing consulting to nonprofits, or it could be small businesses, because they are depth of this expertise, and universities can play a very predominant role, with the faculty being the leaders, and then the students can be part of it. And we discussed about the university startups. So that could be a good model where the students can be educated and also imparted with skills, so that they get hands-on into their entrepreneur journey. And very important for the students to relate to the theoretical content to real business challenges. And this is where the curriculum needs to be changed, and then probably use a case study methodology instead of the traditional way of imparting knowledge, so on and so forth. And we talked about the collaboration, and the collaboration can be done by hosting entrepreneurship contests where the best of the brains come together and participate. It's not about just winning or losing there, but it's about the interaction, it's about the networking, it's about the environment that is created. The belief that there are a lot of people who are taking this idea, and this really helps people to move ahead. And it may all be a good idea to create an entrepreneurship in residence program. This could be for the people who are already working, who probably would like to work for a certain period of time and would like to hang their boots and take up the entrepreneurship route. So they probably want to come back to the college, and there is a twin benefit of they getting knowledge and skill from the university, and they also becoming mentors to the young would-be entrepreneurs. And encourage international exchange programs, because international exchange programs are equally important in the scenario where we are talking about thinking beyond boundaries, where markets are wide open. People can conduct business from any part of the world to any part of the world. So it's very important to understand the culture, the perceptions change based on the culture, and the expectations change, the customer behavior changes. So when a solution that you thought probably is good in this part of the globe may not be working in a different part of the globe, and the entrepreneurs or the founders would get an insight of it without actually venturing into the other markets and paying a lot of price for their mistakes at a later stage. So encouraging international exchange programs is definitely an important thing. So my key suggestions is the colleges should be focusing on gathering problem statements from the industry. They should be interacting with the industry and creating a repository of the problems that the industry is facing, so that these can be given as inputs for the young minds to find the solutions. And this would enable the interaction from the industry, academia, and the students, and that would definitely enlighten the or charge the entrepreneur ecosystem. And it's a part of the entrepreneur system. It could be entrepreneurs themselves, or it could be workforce who can be part of the startup teams. It could be as a co-founders or the initial set of people who can be part of the startup journey, because this has become a rarity these days. Not many people are preferring to be part of startups. And they can provide expert resources, mentors from their alumni networks or their connections with the industry, and aid startups. Funding is an important element besides providing the physical infrastructure, which can go beyond their current students. Probably this is a good initiative that can expand to anyone who would like to become an entrepreneur. They can connect with investors. Investors could be from the government. There are a lot of schemes that are being laid down by the government, and it's given in the form of aids for entrepreneur activities. And there are funds available for performing a lot of research activities. Plus, there are a lot of people who are already on this entrepreneur journey and who really would like to support their college mates as a part of the alumni development program. So we can pull in those people and create a small fund, an angel fund for funding university-based startup activities. So with this, I would like to sum up and put an end to the presentation about my views on the entrepreneur awareness programs that university need to conduct, and the way people should factor in choosing their career path, and when, how, and why they should start at the college, but what are the different elements that they need to be aware of. Any questions? Oh, it's been already 4:20. So if you have any questions, I'd like to take. Yes, Abhimanyu.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, my question is how you relate the scalability and the promoter. So for scalability to exist, promoter has to be there, or in absence of a promoter, the company can still scale.
Good question, Abhimanyu. In fact, a lot of people, a lot of founders of startups go with the thought that they remain throughout the organization's journey from the ideation stage to the acceleration stage. The reality is not that, because there are different set of skills required in each of these phases of entrepreneur journey. So until and unless the initial founder has this skills, he will not be a part of the growth trajectory of a startup. So most of the cases, the initial set of founders at some point of time, as in when the external investors come in, they exit and then pay way for the new leadership to take in. And on this point, I would take the liberty to probably talk about a news that came in the morning. Let me share it with you. The compulsions getting into a acceleration stage. Morning, I got this news snippet where an Indian American CEO in a Zoom call laid off 900 staffers. Okay. And when I was going through this, what caught my attention is American workplace by summarily firing 900 employees in a Zoom call, citing difficult market conditions, sloppy productivity and performance on their part, despite a $750 million cash infusion into the company from investors. So it is not because they're running short of money. It is because there is new set of investors. And the new set of investors, they do not have any emotions attached to this baby that a founder groomed till then. All they are looking for is an ROI. So they don't want to carry the dead baggage going forward. So I am sure the CEO, who probably is a co-founder or is a founder of this company, had sleepless nights when taking this call. And it's not easy for a founder to see set of team members leaving their company. And at this stage, probably, if my guess is right, this person would be quitting soon and someone else would be taking over the company. Because as I said, there are different skill sets required for a company to flourish as companies grow. Hope I answered your question, Abhimanyu.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes,
Hello.
doctor. Yes, doctor.
Hello. Hello. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
How are you, sir? Very nice information. Your step-by-step explanation. Okay, there is no doubt, but I got some additional information regarding you are providing some consulting to non-profit and small business. Why some clarification required for how it is related to non-profit and small business to students, sir?
Yeah. In fact, there is a different set of entrepreneurship, which we call it as social entrepreneurship. If you remember, there is an enterprise in Bangladesh, which was much talked about, where the microfinance aspect was taken up by an entrepreneur, where it helped a lot of small and petty shopkeepers to avoid paying a high rate of interest. So that made their business viable. So there could be a lot of initiatives that are run by an NGOs, and one such initiative is there are a lot of people who are willing to donate and contribute, but they are finding it very difficult to identify the right NGO who can do that activity. So someone, if they can start an activity of putting together, vetting the NGOs and identifying the real needy, it can be a win-win for the contributor as well as the needies. So these are some of the things that probably one can take it up and that can give satisfaction. Or the rewards are not just limited to wealth maximization or profit maximization, but for the benefits of the societies at large.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Abhimanyu, yes.
Sir, I have a query regarding a startup idea. Basically, it happens with the students from the humanities background or the management background. They come across an idea where a technology intervention is needed for a particular startup idea. What is the right approach for them to actually go into the ideation stage or go about creating a startup? Because they have zero knowledge in the technology field.
Absolutely, absolutely. Right. Like I said, the founder of the company need not be the most intelligent person of the company. As long as he has the vision to assess the requirement rightly, and he has the ability to share the collaborative vision with other person. Getting a technology expert to work is not difficult. If you identify the technology is the key for the scale of an idea, then you probably, if you are in the university, you go to the computer science department, which probably handles the technology aspect, go and talk to them, to the professor there, or talk to students who are from that background, who are interested to be part of this idea, and collaborate. And technology is definitely an important piece for any solution today. And without technology, very few investors look at investments, because technology provides scale to large of this innovative ideas.
So there's a follow-up query on this particular aspect. Initially, from a mentality of a student, there is a lot of non-trustworthiness. As a student, he always has a running in back of his mind that his idea might be leaked up. So, what is your what is the right approach for this particular situation? Trust building.
Allaying the fears that ideas by itself mean nothing. Okay, there are ideas a dime a dozen. There is nothing like a secret or an innovation in an idea. I bet any idea that you think is unique, there are multiple people who are thinking at the same time. If not, there are multiple people who have already made progress on the idea. It is just that we are not informed, and we think that idea is unique to us. So definitely, you have to talk to them that and convince them, and that's where the leadership skills come into play. A person has fears that his ideas may be copied, so you allay their fears. How do you do that? By providing information as to how it can be protected. And there is something called as patent, intellectual property protection, that is there. There are laws that are in place where an idea can be copyrighted and a patent can be taken if someone is willing or thinking that that's a unique idea. So probably someone needs to more information on that aspect and then allay those fears.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Abhimanyu. Yes, Hemant Sai.
Thank you, sir. Sir, yes, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, Hemant.
Yes, sir. Like, I just had the small doubts. Like, when you were talking about this industry and academia connect, right? Could you just shed some more light on that? Like, how do we access? Like, not everyone would be ready to connect to people, right? So, like, what all things that we need so that like we can connect to people and get their requirements? Like, what all do we need to learn to get into that? Like, how do we move forward in that direction?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a good question, Hemant. The industry would like to talk to the academia only if there is a benefit to them. Largely, let's think that the industry is primarily running an activity for business and they are tight pressed for resources. It could be time to really spend their time investing talking to academias. They will only do that when there is a win-win proposal. And what could be a win-win proposal? It could be the academia offering them solutions at a cost that is less for them than doing it on their own. It could be they offering resources to work on academia's problem free of cost or cost that is less than they directly hiring. So you need to think about a win-win proposal, and then there are association, there are chambers like we have CAI, we have IT Association in Vizag, we have Vizag Chamber of Commerce, who are the bodies from the industry who are actively looking. In fact, they have a special cell to establish this connection with the academia, because the associations realize the importance of this activity for the flourishing of the industry at large, and they would be open. So you need to it helps to go through the chambers or the associations, or if you can go and establish a connect with an organization and explain them the win-win proposal, they would definitely take it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now that we have hit 4:30, probably it's time to wrap up. And I thank all the participants for the patience, and sincerely congratulate Andhra University for this initiative, and would be very happy to be part of this exercise as and when needed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your valuable insights. This lower information about how to start college startups and how students can start their startups using the help of college is very helpful to us and as an aspiring entrepreneur. Thank you for your time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Good day.